Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Indexer Office Hours. Today is the 4th of October, and this is IOH 79. If anyone is new to Indexer Office Hours, this is the town square where indexers and ecosystem participants come together to discuss the most important topics that are relevant for indexers. I see a few new faces, so that's always lovely to see. Today's conversation will be broken down into 4 segments. The first is opening remarks, where I start the conversation with any relevant information for indexers, where I mostly cover the latest 𝗨𝗪𝗂𝗧 episode. And for anyone who isn't locked into 𝗨𝗪𝗂𝗧, I would highly recommend it. It is the ecosystem podcast. Next, we have the Repo Watch section, where we cover the latest updates for the most important repositories you should know about as an indexer. And then we move on into Protocol Watch, where we have the latest updates on the most important protocol changes that you should be aware of as an indexer. And then finally, we wrap up the conversation with an open discussion where we generally have 1 or 2 topics that we cover. And so at that point in the conversation, we love participation. So please do participate via voice or text. Just as a reminder, this session is recorded and will be distributed on public channels like YouTube. So if you're concerned about privacy, please bear that in mind. And with that, let's get into today's exciting agenda. So for this week's 𝗨𝗪𝗂𝗧 episode, you had David 𝗨𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗀𝗀, if I hopefully I'm pronouncing his surname correctly. He's a biddler in the Ethereum space. Wow, I haven't used that word in a while. And he is the founder of 𝗨𝗪𝗂𝗧𝗧, which is a dashboard to highlight all the crypto projects that are making money in terms of fees. It's very interesting to look at that dashboard periodically just to see which crypto projects are people actually paying for and using. So that's one project he's involved with. He's also involved with CryptoStats, which is an aggregator for crypto metrics, and also involved in the conference burner wallet movement that was quite popular back a few years ago. If you notice, many people were playing. 2019. Yeah, that's right. And in the episode, they spoke about his background in Web 2 before joining the space. David's a little bit of a digital nomad, so we spoke about his journey nomading around the world. And then finally, they spoke about the grant work that's been done with the foundation. So if you're interested in any of these topics that I just mentioned, highly recommend checking out the podcast. I will post a link in the chat. And with that, I'll hand it over to Chris to take us into Repo Watch.
Hello, everyone. So Repo Watch today is actually quite uneventful. So in terms of major execution layer clients, we've not had many releases, which is a pretty amazing feat post-merge. Things went really well. The one release that is worth mentioning is Nethermind, which had a 1.14.3 release. That is a recommended update. Please go do that. There were roughly 6 PRs merged related to sync times and sync bugs, better integration with consensus layer clients, thanks to faster RPC methods, a little bit of better behavior around health checks and connecting to the consensus layer client. And also that brings the engine API, that's the API connecting the execution and consensus layer clients. It brings that up to spec. So go ahead and update your nodes. And of course, that is relevant for our Gnosis chain nodes. So yeah, anyone who's running those, please go update. Onto consensus layer clients. Again, not many releases, which is pretty impressive. Nimbus had a release, that's version 22.10.0. That is a medium urgency release, so please go upgrade. There's some particularly important fixes for Goerli. So if you run Nimbus as your Goerli consensus layer client, please go update. The update comes with faster block production, updates to the Beacon block API for better spec compliance. And for anyone who is running Nimbus in a validator setup and is using an external block builder, this release comes with a bunch of new metrics, Prometheus metrics that you might be interested in. We covered onto GraphStack. We covered briefly that there's a release candidate of 𝗨𝗪𝗂𝗧𝗧 out for Graph Node. That's not an official release yet, but there's a pretty extensive copy of the release notes in the agenda, so you can see what's coming there. And then there was a very recent tag, actually, of 0.2.4 on the indexer repo. This is currently a pre-release, so it is not something you should run in production, but that comes with quite a lot of new stuff and fixes. So I want to estimate like 8 or 9 pull requests in that release. And yeah, particularly if you've experienced issues with persisting zero fee receipts for altruistic allocations, yeah, this should fix some issues. Also, some issues related to batched receipt collection. I guess the other big thing to highlight in this release is that the integration of the Epoch block oracle has been made into the indexer stack. And that is a key unlock for multi-chain indexing rewards. And that, of course, is super important for phase 1 of the MIPS program. So we're right on track for that. Okay, so that covers the typical repo watch section. I'm gonna hold here and ask if anybody has tried any of these releases. I'll briefly say that we have updated on both the Nethermind and Nimbus releases, and that all seems to go pretty well. Okay. There is a new section in RepoWatch, and this section is going to cover orchestration tooling. So these are tools that exist in the community to make it easier to operate, manage, scale your indexer. I know many of us have used the Stake Squid Docker Compose stack. Of late, it looks like there have been a number of fixes there, particularly relating to TLS, so getting like HTTPS on your endpoints. So do have a look there. As far as I know, HTTPS is required on any of the endpoints that you submit for the MIPS program, so be sure that you've figured that out. And then, as I'm sure many of you have seen, there is also GraphOps Launchpad, and I'm excited to say there are workshops landing soon for that. It is in a pretty alpha state, but we are running it in production, and it works fairly well. Launchpad Starter has seen a number of updates, just bringing the kind of default configuration for new indexers up to scratch. And then we have also made a number of Helm chart releases. So that includes Helm charts for Nimbus, Nethermind, both reflecting the latest updates that we spoke about today, as well as OpenEBS raw file PV, which relates to persistent storage in Kubernetes. And then we have had a number of releases of Launchpad Core, the most recent of which is 0.10.0, and that basically just updates all of the dependencies that we've just spoken about. Look out for the Launchpad workshops coming next week. Open for any comments before we move to Protocol Watch.
So we haven't set up the new Nimbus client because that just came out this morning and we're still waking up over here on the West Coast. But we have tried the new version of Nethermind. The sync time is definitely faster. So anyone who is not synced on Gnosis chain, run that. You'll be glad you did.
Thanks for sharing, Kai. Faster sync is never a bad thing. All right. Well, that's it for Repo Watch, and I will hand it over to Juan for Protocol Watch. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. So Protocol Watch is gonna be a short one this time, but there are still some noteworthy things to mention. First of all, heading into forum governance, we have the GIP 31, the Arbitrum GRT bridge. Pablo updated the GIP with a small but significant change regarding the call hooks design to prevent for some possible attack vectors on the L2. Then we head into the indexing rewards on the merge thread. This is related to how the merge changed the block cadence in a way, so that now blocks are always 12 seconds. We have to change the indexing rewards block issuance calculation so that it reflects this change properly. Ariel has been testing this in a mainnet fork, and I think he's gonna be deploying it to the Girly testnet very soon. And after a few days of testing, or 1 or 2 days of testing, it should be ready to go ahead and modify that on mainnet too. Then we go into a GIP 39. This is the improvements on curation, or curation B1.x as it's being called here. This is mainly the proposal by Howard to change the implementation of the bonding curve so that it's now a flat bonding curve. There has been a lot of debate on this thread, so if you like the curation debates, that's a really nice thread to follow. But yeah, that's pretty much it for forum governance. Going into forum research, there are no new updates since last IOH. Contracts repository is still a lot of work being done for the L2, so there are a ton of open PRs for fixes, chores, new features for the L2 implementation, as well as some merged PRs from last week. Getting into the network subgraphs, there have been no new releases since last IOH, and that's pretty much all for Protocol Watch. With that, I'm gonna be handing it over to Abel.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So for the open discussion section of today's chat, we have a guest, and that guest is 𝗨𝗂𝗧𝗂, who's been on IOH before, and he's going to tell us a bit about their recent billing dashboards that they've released with 𝗨𝗪𝒀𝗀. So 𝗨𝗪𝗧𝗂𝗧, feel free to take the stage.
Yeah, sure. So let me share my screen. Yeah. Is my screen visible?
It was for a second, but it's just gone down. So try again.
Okay.
I'm also happy to share. Let's see.
Is it okay now?
Yes, I can see it. Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, so today we launched, announced couple of billing dashboards. So like as subgraphs are moving on graph network, people are, users are using the billing studio for funding the funding the token contract for querying. So to track that data and to track different metrics, we announced a couple of billing dashboards. So the first one is the graph network billing dashboard, which is basically an overview of how the billing is going on. So billing contract. So billing on for graph network, the contract is deployed on Polygon. So the contract is there on Polygon, and we are using a billing subgraph. So the dashboard is driven by billing subgraph, and so this dashboard highlights in the overview section how uh, graph billing works. There are some terminologies like token added. For example, in the billing contract, there are some terms, token added, which is number of GRT tokens added to billing contract, token pulled, which is basically like number of GRT tokens consumed or queried on daily or weekly basis. In the methodology section, it explains like what are the different metrics, analytics is being present on the dashboard. So you'll see like billing funded trend. So this is basically on a daily basis how much like GRT is being funded, and is it on the upwards, or compared to previous day, is it on the upwards or same, or so you can see that it's no change. I mean, there's no change from previous day. Then how many GRT tokens is being queried on the network. So like while doing the GraphQL queries, how many GRT is being consumed on daily basis. So it's on the up, like today it's 0.19% upwards than the previous one. So that you can track. And the equivalent based on the current USD price, what is the equivalent dollar value which is being queried. Coming back to like this is where these are like very interesting metrics. So basically, like as the I mean the subgraphs are being migrated, so it's always good to know like how many unique consumers weekly on weekly basis are querying the graph network, the studio subgraphs. So for example, in the last week, which is from 25 to October 1, there are unique 99 like users who queried the graph network. This was very high in the March to April week, and like which is 150 plus. And this like till now in this week there are 31 users, unique users who have like who have queried the graph network. And it's on the, if you can see like as the network subgraphs adoptions are increasing, it's on the upward trends. Yeah, so this is like I mean total number of, I mean it's the unique like if you care, if you're a user and querying graph network, you'll find yourself in this chart. And this is a very so this is a very like this is this chart is on top of this one, but it adds extra condition that if you are querying more than 100 GRT in a week, then you're counted. So let's say, I mean if you're just testing out graph network querying, then it will not be present in this one, because at least you have to be you have to query 100 GRT to be in this list. So basically if you see in last week there were 34k GRT, like 34,000 GRTs were queried by 40 consumers, and those were these 40 consumers who were querying more than 100 GRT in a week. So these are like you can say consistent users who are querying the network. So you can track here. Along with that, there is like there is billing. I mean GRT billing tokens queried over time. So here you can track like total tokens queried, 7-day average to GRT queried, 30-day average. So it's on the upward trends. Similarly, like this is yeah, so this is the funded chart, like how many the billing contract is being funded regularly by the users. So what is that information over the period of time, so that can be done. Along with that, this is a like very interesting chart, which is GRT billing evolution. So like so there are different metrics you can track on a monthly basis. So current GRT balance, what is the total number of tokens added month by month, total tokens queried, and like people can fund it, can unfund it, so that you can like track it. And it's again, as the network subgraphs adoption is increasing, it's on the upward trend. This is like, let's say if you want to track like on which day which user funded which contract by how much amount. So this is a like each activity, each funded transaction. And so you can see like just now, I mean October 3, on this time there are 5,000 GRT, just I mean latest it was funded. And you can, if you want to see the details, you can just like click on it, and you'll see the Polygon scan transaction. So this is the overview, the overall network billing dashboard overview. The other dashboard is also like very interesting. So let's say so here you get the overview of the graph billing, how it works. And so this is we're calling it user billing activity and balance dashboard. So here it tracks like all the activity. So token added is token funded in billing contract, and token pulled is queried from the billing contract. So it's in the billing studio. So it's also like by default it's across the users, but you can of course filter it uh, by your wallet. Yeah, so any kind of like billing data through billing contract, you can or let's say if you want more metrics, you can around billing, you can let me know. Yeah, but these are the two dashboards like we and this like while building we talked with like various indexers, curators, so got close, kind of collaborated and had feedback while building it. Yeah, that's it from my side.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Abhay, for sharing that. Now I ask everyone in the group if you have any questions on the dashboards that we were looking at. I linked to both of them in the chat, so you're welcome to check those out there. I see Big Jim typing, so we'll just wait on the question. Sure. So Big Jim asks the question, are these tools useful for indexers to understand their customers, i.e. that there's that's their intended use case? So wanting clarity around what the use of these tools are. I have some thoughts, but I'll let you answer, Abhay.
Yeah, so uh, yeah, so this is uh, so it's basically like to track the overall kind of overview of how the graph network uh, is being adopted and how it's being used. So let's say,
It's 11 o'clock.
yeah, so let's say like the sub the, I mean hosted subgraphs are sunsetting and they're moving to studio subgraphs. So as they are like, so how the, let's say if you want to know how that adoption is, how many consumers or unique users using that data, or how many tokens is being queried on daily basis. So this is relevant for I would say like it's an indication of overall graph network adoption. uh, Yeah, and indexers are also like users of subgraphs. Uh, so I think yeah, it's useful for them also.
Yeah, just to kind of add on to that as well. So I linked to a Notion page that the 𝗨𝗂𝗧𝗧 guys have put together, and in that page you'll see there's network metrics, there's indexer metrics, delegator metrics, and curator metrics. So if you remember, we had a couple of IOHs ago, we had a session with 𝗨𝗂𝗧𝗧𝗂 and 𝗨𝗂𝗧𝗧 and his team, and we went through all the different metrics that are relevant for all these different parties. What we're discussing now, what you've just seen, is a dashboard just to get a, like 𝗨𝗧𝗧 said, a general gist of what's going on in the graph network. But if you're looking for specific metrics that could be interesting for you as an indexer, then you can go ahead to the link I just sent there to check out the indexer section, where you can see particular metrics that are useful using GraphLooker. You're welcome, Jim. Sweet. Any other questions? All right. Well, I'll take that as a no. Thank you, 𝗨𝗧𝗧𝗧, for spending the time to tell us about these new dashboards. We've linked them here in the chat, so please do check them out. And yeah, thank you, 𝗨𝗧𝗧𝗧, for joining us.
Thanks, Abel.
Awesome. Awesome. On to the next phase of this discussion. I wanted to create space to have a discussion about phase 0. So at the top of the conversation, we mentioned, well, a few people mentioned that they're currently participating in the MIPS program and are going through phase 0. And so I wanted to open this up to have a discussion about that, if there's any sort of questions in relation to that. Also, just a general MIPS Q&A or indexer Q&A. We have a free session, so feel free to ask away. I see Cohen's already jumped on the opportunity. Let's see what the question is. Could you elaborate on that question, Cohen?
Yeah, some of the MIPS agreements have been cancelled because of envelope expired. I think there was a message from, I think, Pedro and Martin, I'm not sure anymore, to email the foundation about this. And I was wondering if there is any kind of update or anything else that we should do about the agreement being cancelled, or what is expected to follow from here. Yeah, so that we can have our paperwork in order.
Yeah, that's a really good and also important question. In relation to that specific topic, I would wait on hearing from the foundation, as that's a very specific thing. And I don't want to give you any incorrect information. So yeah, I would say, if I'm assuming you've already emailed the info email, right?
Yes, of course.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So I would wait on a response there. If you don't hear anything back, just please DM me, and then I can personally look into that for you and get you sorted there, because that's important. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up as a question. Okay. Next one is from 𝗨𝗪𝗀, if I'm hopefully pronouncing your name correctly. Were there any missions for phase 1 published? No, not yet. So that will be coming out pretty soon, TBD, either this week or the beginning of next week. So keep your eyes peeled. 𝗨𝗪𝗀, do you know where all of the workshops, the missions will be hosted? If not, I can send you a link in the chat now. Let me just grab that. Okay. All right, Chris is already on it. Fantastic. So if you go there, you should be able to see under phases and missions all of the missions as they come up. Okay, so we got another one from Big Jim. How will the MIPS team just when phase one? Okay, so when phase one, we've covered that. It's a good question. The first question. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe that this will be done via Discord, but let me come back to you on that. I'll note that as a question and I'll DM you once I get a response on that. When can we source and create traffic? And the third question, likewise, I'll also dig into that and get back to you on that. So thank you for the questions, Jim. Let's see. Paperwork, okay. Okay. PK asks, can I get someone to help with technical GIT tokens, please? Try the faucet. Interesting. What seems to be the issue, PK? You mentioned you've tried the faucet, but it didn't seem to be working. What sort of error messages do you get, and yeah, what's the issue? Could you provide more context? No errors, just freezes. Interesting. All right. Okay, that shouldn't be happening. In an effort to save everyone's time, I think this is a very specific issue. So let's take this offline. So do you want to DM me, and we can get that looked into? We can look into that for you. All right. Let's see. Jem has asked the question. Sure, we'll do. No problem. PK. This is super urgent. Okay, seems Chris has answered that question. Feel free to unmute Chris if you want to add any more context, but it seems that's a good answer. Hello, Colson. What's up? Nice to see you. All right, I see a few people typing. Feel free to type away or unmute your mic if you have a question.
Spoken questions are more fun.
Indeed. So feel free to shoot away, guys. Okay. Okay, I see a KYC question from Anastasia. Yeah, so if we have mentioned this in the past, we're still working through some KYC issues. Please, yeah, if you haven't, as Chris mentioned already, emailed info@thegraph.foundation, please do, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Appreciate your patience there, because yeah, this is important stuff to figure out. Okay, keep them coming, guys. Yeah. +1 to that, Chris. So true. Okay. Questions?
Has anyone seen the small list of subgraphs that have been published to mainnet? Sorry, to testnet as Gnosis subgraphs. These will be the subgraphs that are probably mission related.
Wink, wink. Alpha leak.
Except first four? Steak Machine, come on, speak to us.
I mean, you mentioned this that was mentioned in Notion doc for subgraphs and Gnosis.
Ah, they're in the Notion doc? Then it's maybe not as much as an alpha leak as I thought.
They already declared and synced.
Oh, ahead of the game. Are you seeing any queries then?
Maybe a few of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Big Jim asked, should I be worried if I haven't seen any? I wouldn't be worried if you haven't seen queries yet, but there are some prerequisites. So you would need to be allocated to the subgraphs, and you will probably also need to have valid cost models for the subgraphs. And obviously the prices that you set in those cost models need to, be close enough to the market price that you receive some queries.
Oh, I found that I served already more than 100,000 queries.
Wow. FOMO.
Nice one.
Okay, give me all the bars. I'm leaving.
Those are some nice stats, Steak Machine.
I'm curious how many indexers already synced subgraphs but didn't allocate to them.
Probably most in the MIPS program because that's the instruction of phase 0.
But come on, off-chain sync isn't so fun.
Okay, well, this is going to be the final call for questions. If you do have any questions, please do write in the chat or speak like unmute your mic and speak the question. Oh, I see somebody typing. Good stuff. Okay, that's in relation to the chat with Chris. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, please do type away or unmute your mic. This will be the final call for questions, and if we don't have any final questions, then we can give everyone back 15 minutes and wrap up the call.
The timing mentions that today we should start phase 1, but I guess that's postponed, right?
Correct. Yeah. So there was an announcement by Pedro actually during this call, just mentioning that we're pushing stuff back in terms of timeline due to the KYC issues that we're currently facing. So yeah, not to worry. Phase 1 will come out very soon. If I could guesstimate, probably end of this week or early next week at the latest. So yeah, that's indeed the case. Cool. Well, if there aren't any questions, then I'm going to take this opportunity to wrap today's conversation and say thank you to everyone who joined and asked questions, chat, and participated in today's conversation. We look forward to having you again. And just as a reminder, we're going to be back again next week, Tuesday. No workshop this Thursday. If all goes well, we could have a very interesting workshop. So keep your eyes peeled on the Discord and Twitter for the next IOH session. Take care and see you then. Bye-bye.
Awesome. See you guys.
All right. Bye-bye.